Tom Bentey Media podcast. I am here with my friend Isabella Wang. She is a social entrepreneur. She is a digital marketer. She has her own podcast. She has a book coming out, which we're going to talk about. And she is associated with the New York Marketing Association and also a creative agency called Creative House. I met Isabella a few years ago. I would go, and I still go, to networking events in Manhattan and in New Jersey. And Isabella was nice enough to organize the events for the New York Marketing Association. And it was always a great time to meet people that are in my field, in the marketing, branding, advertising field. And also they would host some really great speakers that would give presentations on different topics, from digital marketing to traditional advertising to video, etc. So I'm really happy Isabella's here with us today, and she's going to talk about her career and really some tips that not only big corporations can use for digital marketing, but the average day users like myself and like yourself can use to build a presence, build a brand online. So thank you, Isabella, for joining us today.
My great pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Great. So Isabella, so why don't you just tell us a little bit about yourself, your background, how you got into digital marketing, and also I know I follow you online. I've known you a couple of years now. You have such a passion for digital marketing, like just a real passion for digital marketing. Why is that so?
Great question. So yeah, a little bit about myself. You also mentioned already, I'm a social entrepreneur, speaker, and author working on a soon-to-be published book called The Digital Mind of Tomorrow. And as my daily work, I am the operations director at the New York Marketing Association, where we gather together all the passionate people that are in marketing and business field in large, doing exchanges through events, workshops, conferences, webinars, and also I'm very enjoying my daily work as the COO at the creative company called Creative House, where we provide digital solutions to help companies transform their business model and to survive and thrive in a fast-changing digital world. So that's a little bit about my background. And in terms of this thing I'm doing as a digital marketer, right, a strategist or advocate for digital practice, I guess a lot of millennials like me can feel the same. We're kind of in this digital native zone. I don't know if that's a familiar term. We kind of grew up with digital stuff, and not to mention the next generation, Gen Z, that's their world. They don't know what's non-digital. And so for me, I'm always seeking what's the best way to do things, right? Whether it's for business, for marketing, for operations, and digital come into this natural role, integrate into my daily work. And I've noticed the importance of leveraging it since I started joining startups 10 years ago after I graduated from school. And it just, without noticing, applied to my daily practice like every day in everything we do, operations, marketings, and very genuinely, I switched my attention into this area and to completely focus on what this really means for us, right? Especially it's changing so fast throughout the years. I remember the smartphone is only a decade. Can you believe it, right? A decade ago, I was using a Samsung like BlueBerry with this keyboards. There's no smartphone. So to be short, I think the future kind of is not like trying to say digital it's important or how good it is, but future definitely lies into this digital realm. So maybe that explains why I'm consistently pursuing, constantly discovering about digital in general. And apparently it has to do with digital marketing, but in general, I'm into this field because of how it's closely related to our daily life. Maybe not that obvious to everyone, but it's getting more and more obvious.
Great. So how did you get into it initially? How did you get into digital marketing from the onset?
So I mentioned I started with startup companies, and with that, a lot of people probably know whether you have your own businesses or you start something, you are the marketer for your company, right? And I'm applying, I'm learning by myself or working with the professionals on a daily basis how to apply the best marketing strategies, operation strategies with marketing and digital tools. So that's my first, a touch point with digital marketing. And soon, I mean, a big fan of bringing community together. I was hosting a startup community. I was hosting and startup community. A lot of them are actually doing marketing. And I started this marketing community. And most of the things we talk about is all around digital marketing. And because that was like a trend back like 4, 6 years ago. So that was a time when I heavily involved in digital marketing. And then I joined this company I'm at right now, the digital company Creative House, and everything we do, we provide, we are learning on a daily basis. It's all about digital practice, strategy, lead generation, ads campaigns. I'm not the person that actually execute any ads campaigns, or I can tell you, oh, you should target this audience. But on the strategy side, I'm very aware how this can apply in the big picture through omni channels, meaning traditional marketing and digital marketing. Because as of now, we're still kind of integrate both, and you can really just leave off the traditional approach and just leave on the digital marketing alone.
Okay, so let's say with a new client comes in, can you break
Mm-hmm.
down the process? Like, how does that work in terms of figuring out the best plan of attack from a digital marketing standpoint to work with the client? Now, I know it's always very specific to their needs, but can you break down that process for us?
The process of finding the proper strategy.
Yes, yes. Like, how does that work? And then how do they go? I know you said you don't implement that, but how do they go about implementing the strategy that you come up with? So step one would be, how do you figure out what the best strategy is? And then
Mhm.
how do they implement that? And how do you guide them during that implementation stage?
Absolutely. Like for us, that's actually the unique point for the company we work at. We look at each client's from a bigger picture perspective, not just their marketing perspective. Oh, you have to do this ads or do that post. First, we value them with a questionnaire to ask them what stage their company is at, right? If they're a very beginning stage, and obviously the strategy is completely different, or they're trying to reach to the next stage. So we always evaluate their goal and their stage and their market positioning first. And we come up with this consultation session to brainstorm with them and to hear their voice, because every client comes from a different perspective. Sometimes we think we're offering the best practice, but in their eyes, they think it's not anything close to what they want to do at the moment. So there's a lot of communication, which I think is the foundation before you run into throwing money into any ads, or okay, let's do 30 posts this month. It's the foundation is to clear your goal and direction. Or are we going to just focus on 3 products or just 1 product? And from there, and what's the revenue goal, and what's your niche market? And from there, we're going to break into digital strategy combined with traditional strategy as an omni-channel marketing strategy. And do they still need any traditional strategy integrate into their digital, or the digital works perfectly? Just let's just shoot for that. And again, like you said, every situation it's different. And some clients, they want to try everything, and some clients, they just want to do one thing. It never really goes as we wish, but we're always happy to find a common ground. And from there, if the client says, okay, I think we're willing to start trying, because actually a lot of clients came to us without any digital experience. That's why they probably wants to start trying. So they wanted to see how actually it works just with digital marketing. So then from there, based on their goal, their budget, that's very important, and their revenue goal, and we can create an actual plan for them. Let's say with Facebook ads or with Google ads. Again, this is very superficial, I know, but it's just things is working that way because there's a lot of unique point of view to consider when you talk to the client, their budget, their perspective, their long-term goal, short-term goal. And then when that happens, we create a strategic plan for their marketing schedule. And then from there, we assign to our specific team. Let's say if you run Facebook ads, we're going to assign to the team. This is their budget. This is their goal. And again, we're going to set up a strategy for the ads. And the last step is for the people to really execute, to run the ads. That's actually the last step. And before that, it's a long haul to discuss and back and forth with the client. Yeah.
Great. And what are the main, I mean, I know it changes depending on the client and their needs, but in terms of ads, like what are you really trying to get across? Are you coming from a branding standpoint and showcasing like who the company is and showcasing their values? Are you highlighting their services? Is it a mix of both? Like what do you like the best with the ads? What do you think the best ads that are running, that are working the best? What do you think they showcase for the client?
So this is the thing, for any ads, there's kind of different purpose. There are ads for brand awareness, meaning you spend a little bit and it's running on a constantly base every week, every day, even $3, $10, $50. And there are certain ads for boosting, then you need to spend heavily in a very short period of time with very target strategy and very strong, powerful. You kind of have to integrate the best of everything, try to get the maximum result out of those campaigns. So we always recommend on a daily basis for any businesses to always have those ongoing awareness ads running, right? And those doesn't really spend much. And at a certain point, if you launch a new product, if you want to, let's say, promote an event with those heavy focused and high investment kind of ads. So that's like a general practice. But again, every business is different, and we work with this clinic during the pandemic. They were running on a completely different business model before the pandemic, like more face-to-face. Everything was perfect. They're doing very well with up to like almost 20 plus staffing. And because of the pandemic, they almost shut down because of all those face-to-face all of a sudden doesn't work. So we have to work with them to come up with a virtual kind of business model. And they developed this kind of like a virtual series to do educational presentation for their potential market. And every presentation involves to a service that they provide. So we kind of heavily promote each of those presentations with a very specific targeted ads to a very specific niche audience of their age, their location, and running on a monthly basis, those two ads simultaneously running together. And that really worked for them. So they're happy because of, again, you see, it's different, right? Because their product is much more than the ads they spend. So even though the ads kind of sounds like a lot, but they got tremendous ROI, and they're very happy to constantly running those very targeted, a little bit expensive ads, on a monthly basis.
Great. So these are what these companies are doing. Now, do you work in both business to consumer, or do you work with companies that are business to business as well? Because that's what I do. I run a business to business company, video production. And that's the struggle for me, is always bringing a new business. Now I think it's a completely different business model from business to consumer. Most of my clients come from just LinkedIn outreach, but it's hard. It's mostly word of mouth. It's mostly just years of building up your reputation, showing individuals your work, networking one-on-one at events like you host. So with business to business, it seems to be a lot different and a lot more difficult in terms of running ads. And it probably, from my standpoint, it would be better just to do something from a branding standpoint, as to be focused on kind of bringing in direct.
Yeah, I agree. And also, I assume those business to business kind of client, they overall has a better resource in terms of the budget, the team. So definitely for them, those brand awareness ads will show more numbers. I will say that because again, that like numbers means, for example, impressions, right? Means that people see it or just even scan through. And also engagement means they click through, they really act on it. Those are completely different levels level, but from the number perspective, you could get those impressions much easier to impress those B2B business, which are also authentic, very impressive, and very strong, powerful for them to see, oh, this really works. Yeah, so I definitely agree with you.
Great. So let's transition now to just your social entrepreneur, even individuals that are outside the marketing realm, that are, let's say they're in real estate, let's say they're in medicine, and let's say they have a practice of law or a practice of medicine, or they're a doctor, or anything, really anything in this age. I tell my students as a professor, like, you really need to be on social media. If you're not, and for good or bad, I think it looks strange. I think there's something like off if you're not. I know it's unfortunate, or maybe it's fortunate. I don't know. That's up for debate. But you know, any really business could benefit from being online in today's age. So what are some best practices for individuals like yourself, social entrepreneurs, or people outside of the marketing or entertainment field? What can they do to build a presence online? What are some best practices that you know that you can share with our audience?
Absolutely. Yeah, I'm happy to, without even thinking, there's like tons. I noticed, like you said, people are really paying attention. Actually, still a lot of them not really paying attention. And in a lot of people's mind, it's still like an entertaining thing, right? Oh, I share this because I want to show my friends. Or for when it comes to more a proper business perspective, it's a different angle. The first thing, as always, it's to know who you want to engage with. Like if I want to engage with you, Tom, right? Or you're a video production company business owner, or I want to engage with a restaurant owner, or I want to interacting with academic students. And the reason is very obvious. Your message, your style, your even visual looking branding will be kind of different. So it's not just how you feel. I found one of the common mistake a lot of people doing is they just do the way they want to do it. It doesn't really matter who they're talking to. So very important to clarify your audience profile, right? And then another thing is different platforms has different purpose. I actually start more and more realizing that from my practice, and also looking at those successful ones. For example, LinkedIn, much more professional. You mentioned that, right, Tom? B2B, like all your leads comes kind of from there. And Instagram, another purpose. YouTube, another one. And TikTok is getting more popular. And we can elaborate much more on each of them. You have to be, it's not hard to find all of these informations online. Just Google it, like what's your function, right? Your business function. It's more like the service provider, or more education or business. For me, I personally also rely more on LinkedIn. The connection there are more verified and quality, and they're more serious. But if you're, let's say, retailers, right, you're selling clothing, or you're targeting younger generation, you might want to focus on a different channel. So the channel, and I don't also recommend to do everything, like or posting things everywhere. That's also a distraction instead of helping you. And another quick thing is the handle, the name that we claim. Make sure you do it smartly, not like super long or very random. Having this relates to my maybe next tip about branding, having some sort of connection, like unity, like standardize your branding, your visual name. For example, this book I'm doing, I use all the handle, my full name, to promote this book, the Isabella Wang. So everywhere people when see it, they know, oh, it's me. And also it's easier for them to follow you without even knowing, what handle is it for this channel. And as I mentioned, it leads to the branding part, right? I personally pretty recommend to have a branding. And it doesn't mean you need to pay $1,000 for a designer, or you need to visually design everything perfectly. Branding is just something people can recognize. It could be a blank page and you just have a dot on there. That's your branding. And it has really clear pattern, people can tell, oh, that's Tom, or oh, that's Isabella. And make sure you have a habit to start building that, not randomly doing different colors or different fonts. And this also has to do with your post designs, right? If you have a clear branding, your design will be in the same style, and also your voice, your tone, all these is part of your branding. And that goes back to my first tips about the audience. Your voice, your style defined is partially defined on your audience, and also partially defined on your real personal style. I don't want you to fake you. You have to be real you. And because I've heard a lot of story, like people try to mimicking another, let's say, icons or people they worship to, and it never worked well. And at the end, they found out what always works the best is when they truly present themselves. Like, so combine the branding part and your own personal style, and to find the best balance. Measurement, very important. Those are everywhere. You can find the best practice, and Google, Facebook, and all these channels, they have free tools for you to track enough information to see what works and what doesn't, and get rid of those that doesn't have engagement, and focus on those who are very highly with high impressions and high quality content, obviously, right? That doesn't mean it has to be a lot of content, a lot of work. It just needs to have a purpose, right? Whether it's promoting something, and also the content itself needs to be meaningful. People learn something from it. That means high quality. And it can be just a blank photo and it doesn't really direct to anywhere, and people just forgot about it after reading it. And last thing is be very consistent. Like you told me earlier, right? You have to slowly building up your presence. It's not gonna be 2 weeks. It's not even gonna be 2 months. A lot of give up like way before it starting showing, turning points. So I hope those are useful.
Oh, that's great. I mean, what kind of came in my mind when you were talking is that everything that you're referencing now are things that I tell not only my film and marketing students
Mm-hmm.
about building a presence online, but I teach public speaking. And really what we're doing here is we're talking about communicating. So whether you're talking to in
Yeah.
front of a class or you're trying to build a presence online, really at the end of the day, it's about communicating. And that idea of knowing your audience, that idea of understanding who your audience is, providing value,
Right.
providing something that they don't know, or providing it in a way that is new and interesting to them. I mean, these are things that I'm talking about in my public
Public
speaking
things.
class. So it's all about communicating at the very basic level. We're just doing it now through a different medium. And the medium, as Marshall McLuhan said, is the message. So understanding the best way to go about it on LinkedIn, as opposed to Instagram, as opposed to
Right.
TikTok, as opposed to Facebook, really relates into how you're going to convey that message. So obviously you're not going to put on LinkedIn you at the bar on a Friday night with your friends. That's probably more associated with personal Instagram accounts, etc.
Absolutely.
TikTok's much different than LinkedIn
Do
as
you
well.
use TikTok at all? Because it's a
I
lot of
don't.
people.
I was kind of debating on it. I mean, kind of like as a lot of people, kind of warped out with everything in terms of social media. Is it still it seems to me still that it's a young audience.
Yeah,
And
I
so,
agree.
I don't know if
And
that's
a
really going
little
to be.
bit casual, right? Very
Yeah.
spontaneous. I haven't got a hang of it either. That's why I'm asking.
Yeah, no, I'm not really on there. Instagram,
Mhm.
Facebook. I'm trying to get more into Twitter and work that. And Twitter's been around for a long time. I haven't found
Yeah.
a way to really engage on Twitter, but
Hmm.
I think there's value in kind of what I do and what I'm trying to promote on Twitter.
And so LinkedIn is your number one, right?
In terms of business, yes, LinkedIn, 100%. That's how I gain new business, as aside from repeat customers or word of mouth or people just calling me from my website. I'm reaching out on LinkedIn and just trying to connect with professionals in my
Mhm.
field, both for my corporate video production, also for my creative endeavors, like trying to get shows picked up and trying to reach out to development executives and things like that. LinkedIn
Mhm.
is I think, a great resource for anyone out there that's trying to connect with really high quality professionals. So that's what I use. But tell us, Isabella, tell us a little bit
I
more
agree.
about your your book that's coming out. I know you spent a lot of time on that. You're very excited about it. I can't wait to read it myself, but why don't you tell us a little bit about your book?
Of course, yeah. That's kind of like one of my main priority at the moment. I completely underestimate the effort, but I never regret. It's a great learning experience. I started working on this since early this year, about I think late Jan and early February. I made my mind. I'm like, okay, it's a good time to maybe really touch the ground to learn things and to get things together. Because before that, I started writing about digital things, about technology trend, because again, this pandemic, it's like a turning point, like a wake-up call for me. I don't know how many people around me are feeling the same, but for me, it's a wake-up call more than just a virus or just a temporary setback or a crisis. It's for whatever reason, because it can be very philosophical if we talk deep about that. For whatever reason, I feel like we're entering into a new era. Like it's opening up something different. It's not just we're gonna be okay and then things will be back to normal. And for example, the technology part, before we've always had these technology, right, journey, all these industrial revolutions. But this time I feel it's very different because of how fast the transition is. Like never before, it's like overnight, all of a sudden we can work from home very reasonably. Like we just should work from home, and it usually takes decades. Even I'm not that experienced, or I'm still young, but I know those things take years to build up the momentum to make people to accept the fact that working from home, it's a routine. It's not something different. And also there was things like usually whenever there's a crisis, there's always a breakthrough of some sort of technologies. In America, I've shared this many times at my other speakings, 30s with the radio, and then with the smartphones. And now with this crisis, what would that be, right? I believe it's definitely an accelerator of something else. And people, we can't just expect it will be back to normal and things will be continue. It's an irreversible process, especially since I'm working in the digital field. I can sense that it's coming or it's already here. It's just most of us aren't realizing it yet. So combined with all these, awakening calls or my personal observations, and I realized that people around me, whether it's in our human nature, we're resistant, right? We don't want to change. They're either don't want to admit the change or they refuse to change. Many are still taking this as a temporary thing. As I mentioned earlier, many times, something will be gone and then life continues. And that's probably one of the main reason that, urged me to, okay, I want to share. I want to tell people something different is coming up. Let's all kind of wake up to see how we can navigate and deal with this new reality. And what is this new reality is, and that's a little bit more technical, but I can explain very easily, maybe in the general terms here, is that we're living in this new digital reality that we aren't realized. For example, we mentioned earlier, all these social media or YouTube videos, a lot of us still taking as an optional thing, or, oh, it's just for entertaining. It's not a big deal. I can click any button. I can share my, my history. We don't realize what kind of reality we're dealing with, because just think of now, like, who are the companies that are running the world? All of the top four, or we can say the big four, they're all the big tech giants that running on the heavily data basis model. So their whole company, their business model, it's based on the internet data. So everything we do in this internet world, it's actually a completely different social structure that we're already building that we aren't realizing. And the highest authority, who is that? Is not us influencer. Even Tom, you and I were influencers, not us. It's not even government. I don't want to dive deep on that. We know that from the presidential election, and it's the one who controls those data, who tell us you can't join this chat because you don't share your privacy with us. It's those that you don't click on the cookie button, you can't even enter the page. That's the new authority now. And we can even run this Zoom video if we don't agree on their agreements. So things like that, I don't think any of us, it's not people's fault. I didn't even realize this. And this pandemic enlightened me. And I think every one of us deserve to know this new reality, how we should, this is going to be only accelerating, will be more and more immense in the digital. And even without realizing, that's maybe the more crazy part. So how do we have a proper mindset to deal with this world? And as of today, here's some very quick stats. It's like 60%, I think, of the population are on the internet. So, and the number, it's still growing. So it's a real—
That's the world population?
The world population, 60%, yeah, of the world population. And wherever you are, you can be in Africa, you can be in Asia, I can be in America, and we're all belongs to this new, I call it maybe country for easy understanding, this new digital reality. It's a country, like we're a global citizen under this country. And how do we, there's no law yet, and how do we navigate? So all these unknown questions, I wanted to bring it up. I don't think anyone has the answer for any of this yet, because it's so premature, and it takes time to find out what's working, and the regulation is not in place at all. So I wanted to, my purpose for this book, it's kind of just to bringing all this up for people to be aware and share any useful practice I can from my research or my own daily work. Actually, a lot of my inspiration comes from the book, I'm not sure if you read it, called From Yuval. It's an Israeli historian. He wrote a series of books, Homo Sapien, 21 Lessons for the 21st Century, and Homo Deus. So, and one of his message, it's really, he believes the algorithm, it's the one gonna rule the world, and the algorithm might even know better than you know yourself. From all these, histories online, they will recommend you things based on your digital footprints and things like that. Yeah, so a lot of my inspiration comes from there, combined with my own discoveries, research. For example, to asking questions such as when data now, including building social media, right? What we're actually doing is we're collecting information. We're having followers. We don't have their information, but we have their information because we can reach out to them through message. They could sign up with email, and data, it's really just what's going to be the main valuable assets in this digital internet world. And algorithm is the new power, because I can't even name my book name based on my own, preference. I had to do keyword research. What's the best keyword for my book? So even while writing this book, I find just a lot of things very interesting. And what happens when this traditional system, social system, the thing we're teaching in school, and this government, the laws, no longer apply to this digital world, because there's no rule yet. We literally can create rules, and who creates that? What happens when the authority changed? Now at least to me, it's very obvious. And what happens when we talk about this, we immerse in this digital world and our own reality, our own mind, our conscious. And there's a lot of things that we can talk about around this. So this is more what this book about, combined with some common, the practice that I think business should also be aware. There's a lot of unknown, a lot of challenges. There's no blueprint at the moment, but I hope this book can encourage people to reflect and to together contribute as one of the pioneer. It wouldn't be something that everyone will be, oh my God, I wanted to read about it, or this is the thing I want to know. But I definitely have a lot of passion to bring this information out there. Yeah.
Wow, that's very deep, very deep. I was under the impression that it was more of just a book about social media and best practices, but you're
I have
looking
raised
at
a
like,
good impression.
wow, that's pretty wild. It sounds very interesting. Now, did you see The Social Dilemma on Netflix?
Yes.
Okay.
How about you?
Yeah, I
Well,
saw it. Does it reference, is your
everything.
book like, okay.
Yeah, everything. So what do you think? I mean, I definitely like to take this opportunity, how you feel about the social dilemma. And I mean, you kind of shared a little bit, right? You try to still keep your personal, your offline world active. So
Yeah, we were talking off before we started the conversation here that, for me at least, I need time away from my work. I need time away from social media. I need time to decompress. So I stay very active. I'm a surfer. I'm a bicyclist. I like to hike in the wintertime. I like to snowboard. And I really value that time. And it helps me do better during the week. And it helps me decompress and be more productive at work. So I definitely need that time away, and I need to be active during that time. In terms of social media, I think there's obviously a lot of pros. So it helps someone like me, helps billions of people around the world promote themselves, get customers, interact with individuals, meet new people. I mean, that seems to be Zuckerberg's main focus, is bringing people together. Yet the irony is we live in a time that's more divided than any other time. So that's what's kind of interesting, is that even though Facebook's main goal is to connect people. I mean, Zuckerberg has said this for years now, but it seems like we're in the most divided time ever. So that's interesting. But there's cons, and I think we've seen those cons in The Social Dilemma on Netflix. And I think the cons come is when you substitute social media, when you substitute your online life for real life, as opposed to being a supplement for it, as opposed to being something that promotes your real life. If
Mhm.
that now becomes your real life, then we're in big trouble. And I think if everyone has that mindset with this, when this becomes like an alternate reality, but actually the truth, what I guess what people would value as the truth, I think then society is in a lot of trouble, because then I think we have an instance where we're going to devalue human beings, and it's just going to be a completely different moral framework and
Mhm.
social framework and cultural framework that
Mhm.
I think is not compatible with the real world.
Absolutely. And you mentioned it sounds deep, right? Like much more than just the superficial level, like the technology itself or how to apply it. Because, and maybe I missed to mentioning that, like this time the technology transformation is different because it touches on philosophical things. It's not like before we kind of just progress. This time it's very like, it's not just something we leave it to the philosopher or people who have time to deal with that. For example, those artificial intelligence developers, those are programmers, technical people. And for example, if they develop those automation machine, like the cars, the vehicles, and they come into all these ethical questions. If I think maybe you read it somewhere. If there's the kids cross the street, and should the driver just hit the kids? I mean, the auto machine, the self-driving cars, because it's programmed by human. We need to tell them what to do. Should we program to just hit the kids or to turn right and fall off the cliff? So there's all these like things that we're doing now with artificial, those technology touch on this ethical things. And it's no longer an issue that's for a very small portion of the people. It's for every worker, startup founders, and yeah, people we work if you want to be in this digital world.
Yeah, I mean, there's obviously, I don't think there's a way to go back at this point. We're too far gone. So we're going to have to adapt, and hopefully as a culture, as a society, we can figure out the best way to really integrate this new reality with the real world, as opposed to supplement it for the real world. But yeah, there's all these different philosophical questions that come into play, and I'm anxious to read your book. When does it come out?
Heavily editing it, and we're scheduling hopefully the end of the year. Yeah, and I will definitely keep you posted on the, every main steps. You'll hear from me.
That's great. That's great. I will definitely check that out. I'm looking forward to it. And I know, Isabella, that you also have a podcast that you've started just a couple weeks ago. Why don't you tell us a little bit about that? And I've seen you had some really esteemed guests on the podcast, and they've
Thank you.
Cool topics. So why don't you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, like as what you're doing, the same thing, and this I call it live chat. It's actually an extension or inspired by my book. My main goal is to bring together all these visionaries, right, futurists, and people who are heavily involved in the digital world as digital executives, to together share their expertise or their real case scenario that they apply in their corporation or businesses, how they putting together this puzzle in the digital transformation age. As you mentioned, I've invited mainly executives from large corporations, because they're the one kind of directing the ship, right, where they're going. For example, the MasterCard, the innovation senior director at MasterCard, and a lot of people, what they're sharing is this is definitely a nonstop journey, and it's going to just go faster. And the transitioning period of every change, every innovation will be also shortened. So we have to be very used to this constant changing and deal with it like a norm. It's not just going to be, oh, it changed. It's every time it's changing. It's not just one time, or yeah, things like that. And I'm also talking to a lot of people who are in the practice of testing what the future could be. Like I'm speaking with this founder of a museum in Brooklyn. He started a museum called, I forgot the name, sorry, the Museum of Virtual Reality, something like that. Yeah, and what they are kind of focusing on is the metaverse. I don't know if you ever heard about that. It's been a lot of articles about it. And speaking of the Facebook, the founder, Mark, he just announced, I think last month or the month before, that Facebook is transitioning from a social app company to a metaverse company. So all they're doing, or their focus, their business is gonna be about metaverse. So,
what is metaverse? I never heard that.
Oh, no problem. I was like you before as well. Like metaverse, it's like those video games, you wear a glasses and you kind of immerse in this different dimension. It's like a different virtual reality. Yeah, but it's much more than virtual reality. Virtual reality, you just watch and it's just an experience instead of screen. It's more in real. And this metaverse, you can think it as another world we're creating simultaneously with this physical world. You can buy property on there, you can sell things. Yeah, so all these things, Tom, it's very crazy.
Wow, yeah, it is. Wow, I didn't realize that you were that, like, I thought you were just into digital marketing and like Facebook ads, and wow, you're like taking it to another level. That's pretty cool and wild. I'm
Thank you.
digging it.
Thank
That's
you.
great.
Yes.
Um,
Mm-hmm.
a lot of interesting stuff.
Thank you.
Um,
Thank you. Yeah, happy to share more. Definitely. I'm glad you found it interesting.
yeah, I mean, well, like you said, I mean, it deals with um,
And your
societal issues,
videos.
yeah,
Yeah, the
cultural
future.
issues,
Mhm.
and all that. And it'll be anxious to see how this all plays out. But I think it's interesting what you said before in terms of like everything's changing, and there's what you said previously that a lot of people are not adapt. They don't adapt well to that change, and we've seen this really since the beginning of the internet. When
Oh,
if you look back until into the 90s, a lot
oh,
of
yeah.
people thought the internet was just going to be a fad. And if you look at
Right.
somebody like one of the companies that we focus on in my transmedia class is Amazon. And you
Uh-huh.
look at Jeff Bezos, and he in like 94, 93, he
Uh-huh.
knew that the world was going to be transformed by the internet. And he banked all this money, and he started Amazon, I think in 95. He borrowed a loan from his parents of $250,000,
Mm-hmm.
Seattle. He had the background of working at a financial firm in terms of data, and he knew that data was key to success in that kind of business. And you take
Exactly.
that of him understanding how this was going to change back then with companies like these legacy companies like Kmart, Sears,
Mm-hmm.
and they're like well into the 2000s, and their company motto is that the internet is still a fad. And it's like, whose
I
fault is
know.
that? So
Yeah.
to understand how everything changes, I mean, look at even the last 5 years. We've had Snapchat pop up. We've had Facebook being taken down by Instagram, which Facebook owns. You've had
Yes.
TikTok in just the last year. I mean, this is just in the last couple of years. It's been so up and down. So
Uh,
who knows what's going to happen? So to understand that this world is all about change and it's about flux, I think is very important for any digital marketer, any person interested in this social media landscape.
Absolutely. You definitely got the point. Yeah, looking at what I was talking about now, it's like looking at the internet 20 years ago. Yeah.
Who knows? Who knows?
Who
Who knows
knows?
what's going to happen? It's
Yeah.
crazy. But
Yeah.
yeah, that's great.
Adventure.
What? I'm sorry.
Adventure.
Yeah. Great. Where can our audience find you online, Isabella?
Find me. Oh, please find me on. I'm on LinkedIn, Isabella Wang. Search my name, and I'm also on Instagram, Facebook under the same handle. I mentioned that before. You can always type my full name, and you'll be able to find me there. Yeah, and I start using Twitter too. I agree with you. I haven't get a hang of it either. It seems like it's been popular, work very well for some companies and people. I try to start using it as well.
It seems like it's a great tool for interaction, but you have to figure out like how to interact. And I haven't, yeah, I haven't done that.
Message and
Yeah, like people reacting to your tweets, responding to your tweets. And I mean, there's some companies that do it really well, like Wendy's. In my class, we always talk about Wendy's because they have a very kind of non-traditional way of advertising on Twitter.
communicating, right?
Yeah, they
Yeah.
make fun of McDonald's and other fast food restaurants, and they do it in a very tongue-in-cheek way, but it's authentic and it's real, and
Yeah.
it works well, and they have a big following. So, but there's all
Oh,
different. It depends on like how you want to have your brand voice heard on Twitter. So I guess that takes a little time and a little bit of navigation.
absolutely. Yeah. And I also have a website, isabella.us. So that's kind of like everything about me there. You can, definitely check it out.
Great. Well, this was a great conversation. I appreciate you coming on, and I look
Absolutely.
forward to your book and checking out more of your podcasts.
Absolutely. Likewise, Tom. Keep this show going. I'll definitely love to check it out and to learn more.
Awesome. Thank you. Take care.
Thank you. Take